here. All right, that's recording. Okay, testing one. And do you prefer Zach or Zachary?
Zachary for the introduction, then throughout the conversation, Zach's fine, just for more branding.
Zachary, okay. Let me just change that in my notes here so I've got it. Okay. All right, Laura, my trusty podcast editor. I know you're listening in. I'm going to count you in 3, 2, 1. Today on the show, I have the pleasure of speaking with Zachary Beach. Zachary only started in real estate a few years ago, and in that time, he's completed over 100 deals. He's also the best-selling author of the new book called The New Rules of Real Estate Investing. 24 lending experts reveal their real estate secrets. To top it all off, Zachary prides himself on helping and coaching other wannabe real estate investors to replicate the same successes he has had out of the gate. I'm really pumped and excited to have him on the show today to share his incredible insight and knowledge with us. But enough out of me. Let's get him out here. G'day, Zachary. Welcome to the show. How you doing today, mate?
Hey, Reed. Thanks for having me on. I thought that I spoke rather quickly, but you're up here. You're up there. You can hang out with us in New England. I promise you that. But thanks for having me on. I'm super pumped to be here.
I will slow it down.
Hey, you're over on the West Coast, right? I mean, you probably do have to slow it down slightly.
Yeah, there's a few. I remember moving to England many years ago, and people couldn't understand what I was saying because of my thick Australian accent. I've had to learn to pronunciate my R's and my A's and water, or So, but mate, look, enough out of me. Let's get into your story. The first question I ask all my guests when they jump on the show is, rewind the clock and tell me how you made your first ever dollar as a kid.
Yeah, my first ever dollar as a kid, I actually lived near a golf course when I was growing up, only till I was about in 4th grade. And what I used to do is I used to walk through the tall grass and pick up balls. And I used to sell golf balls at the tee. I think it was the 9th tee, four balls for $1. I actually sometimes, if I needed extra cash, I would just say I'd do for 5 for $1. But boy, was I selling myself short. Now I go golfing to buy a case of 3 golf balls. It's like $10. So these golfers are making out. But yeah, that was my first little venture when I was a young kid.
And so tell me, did you have a lot of, was your parents or influences on how to make money and showed you, the lesson of learning how to make $1 when you're growing up?
I wish I could tell you yes. In all honesty, I was at the time, I was just living with my mom, and my mom is, phenomenal woman, but she worked with one company for a long period of time. And then eventually that company dissolved and she became a cashier, and she's been a cashier for forever. Mm-hmm. So I can't tell you that my entrepreneurial spirits came from her. My dad really wasn't around, so I can't say that he gave me much influence there as well. It's life, right? I wouldn't be who I am today if these things didn't happen. I don't know. I just always had this inner, drive to want to be more. I didn't come from money, so I feel like I always was looking at how can I become more successful? How can I get more money? So that was just that internal drive. But I don't know. I'm honestly not sure where I picked up hey, I should go pick up golf balls and sell them, but the golf balls were available and I lived on the golf course, so I thought it was worth it.
No, I think it's interesting having that bit of a discussion in and around how you're brought up and raised with money. And it sounds like you did value $1 and not coming from a lot. A lot of people learn how to hustle and learn how to grind and figure out ways of making ends meet. And it really lays a solid foundation, in my opinion, after interviewing over 200 different CEOs and entrepreneurs on the show, that it is in an awesome way, literally starting with nothing and having not coming from means forces you to be a better entrepreneur, a better business leader. So I think, so kudos to you, man, and we're going to get into, we're going to dive now into your story. So walk me through the years leading up to what you have done today, because I know you're relatively young in the space of real estate, but you've done a lot and you've got a new book out, you've done a bunch of deals, but what was the time in your life where you realized I need to get involved in real estate investing?
Yeah, when I was, so I'll fast forward all the way to college. I won't bore you guys with what I did in high school and talk about all the cool high school memories. We got enough people in my old hometown that are going to continue to do that. I was 21 coming out of college, and I went to college for marketing and finance. And I had no idea, it's just because I had no idea what I wanted to do. But, college was the way because all my teachers in high school told me I wasn't gonna be able to go to college. So that was like my main goal at that point in time. So I went up to college, and then when I got out of college, I actually started bartending down here in Newport, Rhode Island, which is like a really very nice like tourist town. You get people from all over the world that come here, and they have the huge yachts and everything. So it was really I saw it. As the story started before, I said I was always looking for new ways to get around wealthy people or to up level myself with success. So Newport, I was like, this is going to be the place I got to be. So I went and I started bartending at a local bar, and I bartended there for about 4 years. And at one point in time, I just realized that I was like completely burnt out. I was bartending all night long, and then I'd wake up and I actually personal trained in the morning because, why not wake up at 4 a.m. after you stay up till 3? And then, so my father-in-law, who you interviewed probably, you said about 6 months ago, and who's my business partner now, yeah, he's been in real estate for like 25 years. And they always say, like, just find the most successful people around you and go pair up with them. So he was one of the most successful people I knew, especially from the entrepreneurial world. So I said, hey, it would make a lot of sense to start working with him. So I asked him, and because I really wanted to get out of the bars, and I said, hey, I don't know real estate, but it's going to be better than what I'm doing right now. So if you would have me, I think it'd be cool if I could start making calls. So what I did is I literally dove into real estate. My experience was like making outbound calls to expired listings for like hours upon hours a day. So this isn't fun work, but it taught me a lot. And I did that for about 2 years, really, until I got to a point where, or let's say for the first 6 months, it was literally all outbound calls. But then eventually it got to a point for about 2 years, I just really worked on the seller side of the business, how to acquire the right leads, how to get good appointments, how to get properties under contract. And then after about 2 years, then I started looking at the business as a whole and how to create and grow it. So that's my short story of where I come from. It's been be about 5 years now that I quit bartending. So I turned 30 years old. I started this business when I was 25. So it's been a fun journey.
30, mate. You're younger than I am. I thought I was young at 34, but you got a baby face going on over there. Must be the lack of sun with over on the East Coast.
Right.
And one thing before we keep going, America's Cup, right? That's up that neck of the woods, right? And a lot of Aussies have. We won it once, I think, was an Australian team. You back in the 80s, and that was the biggest thing since the best thing since sliced bread. But I do remember. I know that part of the world probably has a lot of Australians.
Oh yeah, I used to work out with a bunch of Australians, a bunch of Kiwis. And actually a good friend of mine that I was actually my workout partner for a long period of time, Rome. He was on the America's Cup team that came back from down 0 to 7. I guess I think it was to the Aussies, and he was on the I forget which boat it was called, but they came back and they won. That was a huge thing. America's Cup is what made Newport, Rhode Island. It came in the 70s, and all of a sudden it blew up to being like this. Went from a Navy town to a now like a millionaires. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, mate, let's enough about the boating world. We could probably talk about it for ages, but talk to me about what I think the biggest thing that's coming out of your story right now is the art of the grind, like learning how to just pick up, roll up the sleeves, and you're not afraid to get your hands dirty. So maybe talk a little bit about what you do and what is your business today, and maybe think of it like a Chinese menu. Like, what's the free stuff, the entrees, the appetizers, and then all the way through to dessert. What do you guys do?
Yeah, so let's just look at it, because we have two businesses, and that's what makes us very unique. Is we have our buying and selling entity that we still constantly do deals with. And then we teach people how to do exactly that, because, if something comes up in our business, we know now to go teach it, because it's happening while we're doing it. So from a real estate side, we focus only on terms deals, very specifically lease options, owner financing, and subject to deals, all creative financing, which is becoming relatively more norm now. I can tell you that, because now when I actually call people from like an expired listing or a for sale by owner, people say, are you one of those people that are calling about a lease purchase, or are you one of those rent to own people? And I say, yeah, I'm glad that you actually know about it, because before I used to have to like explain it, as like a children's book. And now I can like get to a high level conversation about why I can buy your property better than the rest of the rent to own people. So it's been fun. So that specifically, and then we just take that entire business model and then we present it into what we call our associates or our students around the country, and that way they have the A to Z of being able to build and scale this business.
And are you focused only in the Rhode Island area, or are you nationwide?
Yeah, great point. So for us specifically, Southern New England, but we have students or associates that we call them, people that we hop in the trenches and help them complete deals, help them build their business. We're in 80, 90 plus markets now around the country. So yeah, we're everywhere. And now I know we have students in Canada as well, which is a slightly different market, but yeah, throughout the United States.
So let's walk us through for the basics. Let's get it down to the layman's terms. What does a quote unquote deal look like for you in terms of owner financing? Walk us through maybe the A to Z of what you look for. And I assume it's single family houses, right? It's not on the commercial side.
Correct.
That you want to go and find everything from the listing to trying to negotiating the lease option to then executing on the back end.
Yeah, so just to answer you there, yeah, primarily single family residential homes. We have done multi-families before. We tend to see that it works well up to about 10 units because you're talking about buying from somebody who is like a mom and pop, right? Mm-hmm. Compared to trying to buy from a commercial, somebody that's taking on large amounts of multifamilies. But let's look at our basic lease option deal. We're primarily, our primary lead source is going to be for sale by owners, for rent by owners, or expired listings. Expired listings really consist of about roughly 60% of all of our deals. And that's because somebody has gone on the market either by themselves as a for sale by owner or with a realtor, and the market has told them this is not, for some reason or another, it didn't sell. So now they're looking for alternative options. They tend to have more open-minded to alternative options. So once we acquire a lead, which is typically acquired from one of our virtual assistants nowadays, we're a huge fan of working with virtual assistants and setting up a simple system or using a CRM. That way you can be more organized, set some automation. But if you're not tech savvy, I can tell you I started with a pen and paper in a 1 through 31 folder. It was like the most basic as basic could get. But now, today you might as well take advantage of the technology if you're open to it. So once the VA acquires the lead, I'll then do a follow-up call. I'm primarily focused on motivation because clearly, as being in the terms business or creative financing, you're really focused with people's motivations, because if somebody, for example, said, hey, I'm willing to take a significant decrease on my price, but I need all my cash today, I can tell you that's not a good fit for us. We tend to work with sellers who are open to holding on to their equity for a period of time. So let me walk you through what a lease option looks like. A lease option simply means that you and the seller are going to agree upon a price. You're then going to take over any and all responsibilities associated with the property. So that'd be mortgage, if they have a mortgage, maintenance, taxes, repairs. And then on or before an end date, you're going to cash them out. So real simple. We buy properties without using our own cash, credit, or asking investors for money. Once we have that property under contract, we then are going to look for a rent-to-own buyer. So a tenant buyer is what we call them. And there's somebody that are just outside of financeability, not somebody that's a renter that's hoping one day they're going to be a buyer. No, we're talking about buyers that just need a pathway in order to be able to buy a home. Right now, filming from a house that I actually bought on rent-to-own because I am self-employed. And self-employed people need to show seasoning for roughly 24 months in order to become qualified with a bank. So I was able to tie up this property, live in it, and get a really good deal on it, which was great. So I just want to let you guys, this is for everything, and this is a really nice house. Not to be egotistical, but it's not like the crap houses down the road. These are nice move-in-ready homes. So once we find our buyer, we'll bring them through an extreme vetting process, a qualification process. We'll find out all the information, and then we'll be able to determine, using a third party, what their mortgage readiness date is. With that mortgage readiness date, we're then going to be able to determine how long their agreement's going to be with us. So we call this a quote-unquote sandwich lease, or sandwich lease purchase, because you're acquiring a contract with a seller, You're then going to make your profits, and then you're going to work directly with a buyer. The really cool part is, and if you're sitting out there as an investor, you're going to really like this because we get 3 paydays on every single deal. 3 paydays consist of the non-refundable deposit that you're going to collect from your buyer, which typically ranges around $30,000 up front. The spread every single month, so the difference between what you're collecting from your buyer and what you have to pay on the mortgage, that's roughly $300 to $500 per property, again, per month. And then back-end profit when the buyer actually gets their financing, you're going to get it's roughly $40,000 on the back end because you've increased the property on a premium and you got all the principal pay down on the property throughout those years. All of that roughly adds up to, in our portfolio, it's roughly $75,000 per deal. But we have deals that are the low end of like $50,000 all the way to, over in your neck of the woods in California, we have some that are up over $300,000 with the total profits on these paydays. So maybe a little bit more than you wanted to hear, but that's the nuts and bolts of walking through a lease option deal.
That was really, really concise and well done, because I think it's interesting to hear it again. And we've had a couple of people on the show speak about lease options, but it's always been something that's interesting to me, but nothing that a path that I didn't go down the road of. Something that I could do maybe back if I moved back to Australia, because it's a slightly different market back in Australia compared to here in the United States. I guess in and around the lease options, how long do you hold a lease option for? What's a typical life cycle?
Yeah, a typical deal is going to sit right around 48 to 60 months with the seller. We now, of course, with everything that's going on with COVID and honestly, to put yourself in a better position to make more profit, because obviously the longer the term, the more net profits in the deal. So for number one, for protection, you want a longer term and of course more profit. But our deals roughly sit between 48 and 60 months, but we have some deals that are 10 plus years, all the way down to, we wouldn't go any shorter than roughly 48 months right now. For the obvious reasons.
Why no longer than less than 48 months, I should say?
Okay, because, all right, so our typical buyer is roughly going to need 24 months to qualify for a loan. Okay. So I would like a 24-month buffer, if anything. Our buyers, because we set them up for success and because we separate ourselves from other people that are doing lease options, which are, we actually put people in the property and qualify for them to actually buy the house and not just to collect the non-refundable deposit and hope that they do. Our buyers have roughly a 95% success rate. But there are all those times where people default, and we need to make sure, not only default, but maybe need an extension from their agreement. So we'd like to have a buffer of that 24 months at least in order to fill the property again with another buyer or to sell the property traditionally. We have different exit strategies if we have longer terms.
Got it. And it sounds like you're keeping in a sort of first homeowner buffer. You said $50,000 to $300,000. Like that's really your range. You're not doing $600,000 or $1 million houses, right?
Actually, we got a house up here on the water that's over $1 million. We actually bought on owner financing. So we do properties throughout. It obviously depends on the market, but on average, our market here in Southern New England is roughly $699 to say $299 is a good space. Once you get, it's for other markets, the prices are lower, but I want to stay in a range in which we are going to have good buyers. I'm not trying to be like in the $100,000 range. A non-refundable deposit for that's like $5,000, and that doesn't give a lot of people incentive to actually qualify. So we want to stay in that nice range of maybe $299 to say $699. So could be first home buyers, but it also could be a lot are self-employed or somebody that was in top management before that had a legitimate hiccup in their credit and now they're trying to reboot, or somebody that's relocated. A lot of banks like to see, or a new job relocation. You need to show about 24 months as well. And then, of course, with everything going on right now, banks are extremely tight. Most banks are telling you that if you want a jumbo loan, which relates to the $1 million properties, if you want a jumbo loan, you have to have a 750 credit score, 6 to 12 months reserves in the bank, 20% down. Like people that could qualify for these jumbo loans like 3 months ago can no longer qualify for them. So we've actually been working in a lot of the higher end properties recently just because sellers need alternative options right now, and we're able to help them with it. Now, we don't know how long that's going to last. I don't know when this is going to be released. Maybe things have changed by then. But that has definitely been a segment of the market that we've been able to help during the COVID.
They're very interesting. And I think something that we want to get into. So COVID has hamstrung a lot of different businesses. I guess the two-part question here is the stigma around rent to own. And let's maybe talk about that first before we get into the COVID, because I think you need to lead with that, because I know in Australia, I remember years ago when I first started learning about real estate, there was lease options in Australia. Like that was one of literally the first things you could do. I know the Australian government at some point didn't like it. Is it been similar issues here in the United States around the lease options sort of space? And you mentioned earlier that you don't have to educate people anymore. So clearly it's out there, it's more prevalent. But maybe talk about the history of it and how it's evolved over time. And then we'll talk about the COVID.
Yeah. So, I mean, lease options have been around since like the 1800s. So as an owner financing, creative financing, most things were done like a handshake in like the 1900. You could just like draw it on a piece of paper and you got a piece of land. But nowadays, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. There's too many people out there teaching ways in order to collect the profit and to not have people become successful. That's the stigma around a lot of this. And there's people out there that are openly saying it, like on YouTube and teaching it. Like, hey, just collect a non-refundable deposit. It doesn't matter if they qualify. You just kick them out and you get another non-refundable deposit. So you have these leaders of the industry saying that, and then you got people that are learning that. And then all of a sudden now you have a large amount of real estate investors that think that way. Right. So we've made it personally our agenda to change that, and we don't teach that. I think it's very important to help people be successful in this space, because especially right now, like people need creative financing more than ever because of the tightening of the banks, because people are now being behind. Let's say a homeowner's now in arrears for 3 or 4 months because of COVID, because they lost their job. So now they need someone to be able to come in and help them relieve that mortgage burdens. So this could always go two ways. I mean, with great power, comes great responsibility. So if you have creative terms that can help a large amount of people, especially right now, and you're doing it for the wrong reasons, then you're hurting the entire environment. So right. I think that's where the stigma comes into. And then of course there's the uneducated part of it, right? Because if being a seller, some sellers say like, why would I want someone to come in my house that can't get financing? They're obviously not a buyer. And then we have to educate them, because there's so many buyers out there that are just on the cusp and they just don't know the path in order to get there. So you could have somebody that's been renting for 10 years, has 50 grand in the bank for a deposit. Their credit score is just not good because they've never been taught to get good credit. Like I can tell you, just me being a background, the first credit card I ever had destroyed my credit for like 5 years because I got it when I was like, 16 years old, put $2 grand on, like never paid it. Because I wasn't taught, like I didn't know what it even was. So you got things that happen to people that the buyers just need to be educated, and they can be really good buyers. And then sellers, as soon as they understand that they're really helping out a massive amount of people that can get them to their dollar figure. That's what a seller wants. They want the house sold. And we just have a pathway to help them profit more from it, as long as they have the ability to wait and to think creatively.
Got it. I think that's a good explanation in and around the why there is a stigma. And I think you're correct that I know people who do exactly what you just said, who just take the non-refundable deposit and rinse and repeat and keep going until you run out of people. I guess back to more the cleaner way of doing business. Are you going to see do you think COVID will have an impact on house prices and thus people trying to be too far out over their skis from a lending point of view? What I'm thinking of here is more to do with the inflated house prices that I see here in my local area in Los Angeles, where people want $1 million houses, but they only just squeak over the line to qualify for $1 million houses. Now with COVID and potential job loss, do you think that's going to be an issue, and thus more people looking to someone like creative financing like yourself in order to get those back into those properties that they wanted to live in and sort of keeping up with the Joneses type, so to speak?
Sure. Yeah, I think creative financing helps a lot of people to be able to stretch just outside their means if that's the case. Because in all honesty, if you're a seller and you have a free and clear house and you're looking to own or finance it to someone, so or even sell it on like a contract for deed, where you're not giving up title, but the buyer is going to be getting the buyer benefits or the homeowner benefits. If you have a property, let's say it's $1 million, and you're willing to take, say, $200,000 down, like 20% down, and then you're willing to finance it, well, they don't have to go to a bank. Of course, now that person that maybe only qualified for like 800 or 900,000, but you're able to structure a deal in which their payment stays relatively lower than $1 million payment that a bank would give them, then people can stretch outside their means.
Mm.
I also think it's more from like a banking standpoint, is we just never know when a bank is going to decide to tighten or loosen their reins. Like right now, people need some additional help, but the banks do the opposite. It's always like, whenever you need a loan, you can't get a loan. But as soon as you don't need a loan, you can get a loan no matter what. Like you have 5 banks calling you. So it's kind of backwards if you look at things like that. So we're just trying to put people in the best position possible in order to eventually go get their own loan, get their credit up, get their non-refundable deposit down, and really just be able to be successful within this. As far as like prices on properties, I would guess that we're at, it's just a guess, don't hold me to it, but I would guess that we're probably about to slide down the back end of an 8-year cycle. And I think COVID accelerated it a little bit, but that's going to depend on the market just in general.
In that point, are you seeing any movement right now? I know we're still very close to the fire, but has anything started to shift in a negative direction in your local area?
I don't think that things have shifted negatively as far as price drops, but I have seen property staying on the market a heck of a lot longer. And I don't know if that's due to inflation of a purchase price, or is that just due because there originally was, let's say 60% of buyers out there that could qualify, and now there's 40.
Right.
So now you definitely still have serious buyers out there, especially in hot markets. Like Southern Rhode Island, still a hot market. I'm sure LA, still a hot market. Like you still have hot markets. And we're going to see a ripple effect throughout the whole process. But I just think in general, you're going to start seeing longer time on market. And that's at least what I've seen so far throughout the markets that we've been working on.
And that's probably to do back to your point of the banks tightening up their purse strings a little bit. Not as many people, being able to afford getting into their first home or whatever that might be. The banks have increased their requirements now, which, everyone, I just closed on a house actually recently here in LA, my first primary residence here. And I went from a self-employed loan. They just literally, excuse my language, shut the bed before COVID. And I had to go pivot to a hard money loan. We're doing a massive renovation to it, but then I'll get my money out of it once. And I've got to float the renovation loan, but same thing happened. Like but I could pivot where someone else who is in a W-2 job may not necessarily be able to pivot because they don't have enough money on hand or whatever. So all of a sudden they just can't go out and start buying houses. Hence to what you just said, things are staying on the market a little bit longer. So yeah, I've definitely seen it here in LA. Price drop, not so much just yet, but we'll see how frothy. Like I remember going to open houses pre-COVID, just like hundreds of people, like in LA here first, like in that sort of $600,000 to $800,000 range, and you could add a little bit of value to it. Forget about it. Like you're competing. There's a big competition here. So yeah,
100%.
How are you pivoting, moving into COVID? Are you doing anything differently in the way that you work with people? Because I'm sure some of your, I don't want to call them clients, but some of your buyers would be could be struggling right now with the whole pandemic. So how are you reacting to that?
Yeah, all good questions. So first of all, with our buyers, we typically carry roughly 70 properties at a time, 60 to 70 properties at a time, me and Chris and the rest of our family team. I think it's all about how people proactively reacted to this pandemic. Mm-hmm. We didn't see like a massive drop in people making their payments every single month. Actually, it stayed roughly the same as what it did before. And that's just because we prepared, we openly communicated with each one of the buyers So we didn't see a massive drop off, and people that have either lost their jobs or are out of it or are waiting on their job to come back, they were able to establish a payment plan and or have reserves in the bank. Remember, these are buyers; these aren't just typical renters. Typical renter, I think they said the average American has like $400 in their bank. We want to make sure that before they get placed in the property, that they have that they have the ability to withstand 6, 7, 8 months when it comes to this type of property. So we want to make sure that we're putting them to be successful as life does happen. And I apologize, I don't know what the other part of the question was.
The question was, how are you guys pivoting for the rest of the year to change the business and how you roll it out, and if there's any major changes forthcoming? Yeah,
the major change that we did, and we were actually, funny thing is we're already evolving to this in general, is we buy most of our properties virtually now. Which is, my original paradigm was a seller's not going to sell you a house with little to no money down, no cash, no credit, over the computer, over the phone, and for a long period of time. But that has shifted, especially because of COVID. I mean, they're just like, I don't want you to come to my house. Why don't we just do a Zoom walkthrough, and then we'll put together the agreement. So it actually allowed us to work more virtually, which allowed us to expand our market as well, which, again, increases more deals.
Right.
And also, I mean, right now, realtors were having a really hard time of putting properties under contract, showing houses in most markets, not all hot markets, but in most markets, putting properties under contract, showing them, because sellers now didn't want open houses. They didn't really want people doing walkthroughs of their house. I remember I was speaking to a couple realtors, and they told me that you had to have a signed agreement to even go see the property, or you had to put in a formal offer before you go walk through the house. So that's just, it's insane to think that someone's going to go get a loan, sign their name on the dotted line. It's basically signing their life away with these banks without going to see the house. So It just allowed, anytime anything affects the traditional market, it just makes our buying and selling easier. I can tell you, when we're in hot markets, like over the last 7, 8 years, we bought plenty of properties. Like all of those houses that I was talking about were bought over the last 5 to 7 years. And now that COVID's going on, and now that the market's starting to shift in most areas, it just means that it's easier for us to acquire properties now and buy them. Now, I think time will tell as far as the buyer side, but actually we originally thought that it was going to actually slow down the buyer side, but my brother-in-law just closed another deal, another $20,000 non-refundable deposit on like a $300,000 house, collecting from a buyer earlier today. So, I mean, the buyers are still out there. The buyers are still serious, are still out there. And actually, our buyer's market, what we've seen now is opening up significantly, because whenever the banks clamp down, people still want to buy houses. They still already had their mind set on buying houses. So now we just help them with a rent-to-own program. Right.
Well, I think that's fantastic, and it seems like good news, right? Like things are looking cherry for the rest of the year and post-COVID. So well done, mate. At the end of every show, we like to jump into the top 5 investing tips. You ready to get into it?
Yeah, I'm ready,
mate. What is the daily habit you practice to keep on track towards your goals?
I would say goal setting on a day-to-day basis. I think it's huge. I use this thing called a 90X planner. I know the owner, Alon David, he basically it's a goal setter, but that's a day-to-day. So that way you actually know you're working towards your goal. I think that's rather important. And then exercise and any mindfulness activity. Us being entrepreneurs, like you got to get your mind right and your body right in order to be successful. So you asked for one, I gave you
3. No, I love it. I think the more complex the answer, the more it sits very important to you in terms of making sure you are getting the right juices in your body throughout the day, or in the beginning of the day, in order to go tackle the day and be successful. I think that's really, really important. Question number 2, who's been the most influential person in your career today?
I would have to say it's my father-in-law at this point in time.
Yep. I thought it would be. And we've had him on the show. I can't remember exactly what episode it was, but it's definitely 6 or 7 months ago. Definitely Chris Prefontaine, right? He was on talking about lease options and different stuff, which was an incredible insight into that. So go check that one out as well. Question number 3 is, what's the most influential tool in your business? Now, when I say tool, it could be a physical tool, like a journal or a phone, or it could be a piece of software that you use. So what is the most influential tool you use on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think the biggest influential tool that actually we just got more involved in is FreedomSoft, which is our CRM slash automation tool, organization tool. I mean, it has everything that you could possibly ask for. You can acquire leads through it. You can then automate everything through it for your workflows. You can send out contracts, get them signed and everything. You don't have to use DocuSign or anything. It's an all-encompass, all-inclusive tool that we use on a day-to-day basis now, which I believe has changed our business.
That's awesome. Great. In one sentence, what has been the biggest failure in your career, and what did you learn from that failure?
I went through drug addiction. I would say that'd be my biggest failure.
Interesting.
But
how was that?
Why? Well, it was fun on the way in, but not so fun on the way out. Yeah, I grew up in an interesting time. You're slightly older than me. I mean, we're in the world of painkillers. I would think that was like the biggest influence when I was growing up in high school. So, yeah, it was easy to get involved with them. And went through a bunch of ups and downs as my early career, or my early life. And eventually I got myself out, thank God. I was one of the lucky ones.
Yeah.
I had some friends that I lost, but wow. Here we are today.
That's incredible. And I guess what did you learn from that setback in your life?
I learned that was probably the hardest thing I was ever going to go through in my entire life, and I made it out the other side. So
right,
it's nothing but up now.
So resilience, I guess, is probably what is the biggest thing that you probably learned from that. Keeping going, moving forward, and getting up off the ground, and knowing that you can make another day. I think that's important. So,
yeah. So we're all going to go through something at some point in our lives, whether it's drug addiction, debt, close family member dying, or loss of a job, or failure of a company. Like, we're all going to go through it. It's just, we got to take those as learning lessons. I don't regret a moment of it. Yep. Made me who I am today, and I think that's why I'm where I am today.
That's awesome. That's incredible. And I think something that you can work your life around, knowing that it's part of who you are, and not being ashamed of it and owning it and saying, yeah, I had a problem and I freaking beat it. So here I am today, kicking ass and taking names.
That's right.
Yeah, mate. Last question is, where can people reach you to continue the conversation? They want to be in your sphere a little bit more. Where do they go?
Yeah, let's send them to 2 places and throw in the show notes. I'm happy to do a free strategy call with you. If you want to learn more about terms, learn about how you can implement this in your own business, or just get started, just go to smartrealestatecoach.com/action. That's smartrealestatecoach.com/action. It's just 6 simple steps. Set up a strategy call with either myself or Chris. Cool. We do all of them. The other thing I would go to, I'm happy to give you the New Rules of Real Estate Investing book that we talked about earlier. Right now with COVID, we don't have anybody in the office, so we're not shipping them out, but you can go get your free copy of the PDF. Just go to newrulesforfree.com. That's newrulesforfree.com. Take a look at it, or if you want to go on Amazon, go ahead and buy it, but you can get it for free there.
Cool. Well, mate, thank you so much for jumping on today's show. I just want to reflect some of the things that I took away from today's show. I think it's your ability, what I said earlier, the ability to grind and go through hardship, and just learning that you went through drug addiction, but also hearing about your upbringing. It sounds like you've gone through it a little bit, but you've come out the other side, and you got up back up. When you got bucked off the horse, you got back on, you dusted off your knees, and you kept on going. So I think your resilience has definitely come through in this interview, but also then to the business side and how you've evolved again, and you're evolving the business as COVID is impacting. It sounds like it's going really, really well in terms of being that alternative financing option to people when the market has shriveled up a little bit and contracted. You guys can step in and continue doing business and continue to be successful. So yeah, did I leave anything out?
No, I would say the only thing I would add is, you could do this in any market, at any time, depending on, with no dependence upon the actual market itself. You just got to know you got to put in the work, learn. The system is very simple, but it's not always easy. Super simple, but not always easy. Just like anything else. As long as you're willing to put in the work, put your blinders on, you can certainly grow a business this way.
Persistence, man. Exactly. Well, thank you so much, mate. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll catch up very, very soon. Well, there you have another cracking episode jam-packed with some incredible advice from Zach. And if you do want to head over to his website, check him out. He's got a awesome amount of stuff that is available for free over on his website, thesmartrealestatecoach.com. All the links that we had that we mentioned in today's show note will be on the show notes. So please check them out. And if you are interested in learning more about lease options, it's definitely a way to get started in, as Zach said, in any market. You can do this in a hot market, in a soft market. You can always find people that are willing to sell. You just got to be able to put in the work and put in the systems in order to be successful. I want to thank you all again for taking some time out of your day to tune in to continue to grow your financial IQ, because that's what we're all about here on this show. If you do like this show, the easiest way to give back is by giving it a 5-star review on iTunes. And we're going to do it all again next week. So remember, be bold, be brave, and go give life a crack. Thank you, my friend. That was awesome.